What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Alright, so before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the brother Aram for the donation to the channel via the PayPal. And I saw your note, and no, I haven't forgotten about the top 10 ABA players. I'm going to get to those, just doing a little bit more research before I come to a listing. It may even be after the finals, to be honest with you, when I finally get to that, when I might probably feel comfortable doing a top 10 list. Right now I'm trying to narrow down my top 10 NBA coaches, and pretty much have nailed down how I want them listed, still making some adjustments. But at number 9, I have Lenny Wilkens. At number 10, I had Bill Fitch. So at number 9, I have Lenny Wilkens. All right. Lenny Wilkens is somewhat unique from most other all-time great head coaches. Most of the other great coaches were marginal, at best, players. Lenny Wilkens was a Hall of Fame basketball player. Oftentimes, the great players don't make great coaches. There are exceptions. Larry Bird, when he coached for, I think, about 3 years in the NBA, he was a great coach, but he did have a Hall of Fame assistant coach rank and file. Off the top of my head, I know one of them was Rick Carlisle, who wanted to become a very good coach himself. And Rick Carlisle also was a teammate of Larry Bird's in Boston back in the 80s. Then he had some other guys I just can't think off the top of my head, but he had a great rank and file assistant coaching team around him. But for the most part, most great players do not make great head coaches. Michael Jordan often said that he felt that he would not be a good head coach because of that. Magic Johnson was not a good head coach. Jerry West, although their record was sort of spotty, often lamented that he didn't have the temperament to be a really good head coach. He was better for front office roles. One of the problems with great players, great athletes, is that they have a hard time relating to average athletes. Sometimes they think that they're just not practicing hard enough. They're not trying hard enough. When in reality, their talent level just isn't the same, and they have to practice often harder just to make it into and stay in the league. And that can be a point of frustration for both the coach and the player. But Lenny Wilkens' personality allowed him to be able to deal with all types, whether it was a person who needed to be pumped up or a person that needed to be brought down a peg if their personal agenda was not fitting his agenda as a head coach. Or, he knew how to talk to all types of players' personalities, and he was a very successful coach for a very long time. For many years, he was the all-time leader in victories for a head coach, a record that he set back in 1995. And now, of course, that record is held by Greg Popovich. For a couple of years, it was Don Nelson. And he won a championship back in 1979 with the Seattle Supersonics. The only championship that he has. But one of the prerequisites for me when it comes to being a top 10 head coach, you have to have won a championship. I'm sorry. When it comes to head coach, you have to have won a championship if you want to be considered one of the top 10 coaches of all time. But Lenny Wilkens was a Hall of Fame player. He played in the NBA from 1960 to 1975. The first 8 years of his career, he played for the then St. Louis Hawks, now, of course, Atlanta Hawks. For 4 years, he was the head coach and a player for the Seattle Supersonics, one of the first player head coaches in the NBA. One of the first black head coaches in the NBA period after Bill Russell. Then he played 2 years in Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was just a player with Cleveland. But then with Portland, the Portland Trailblazers. He played there for 1 year, 1974-75, as a player before retiring. And in his NBA career, he averaged 16.5 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 6.7 assists per game. He scored 17,772 points and dished out over 5,000 career assists. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to look at some of his prime numbers. And from 1964 to 1965 to 1973, over the 8-season span, Lenny Wilkens averaged 19.3 points, 5 rebounds, 8.1 assists. Yeah, he was a truly, truly great player. After his retirement, but before I go into that, I do want to talk about his accomplishments as a player. He was a 9-time NBA All-Star, 1971 All-Star Game MVP. He led the NBA in assists in 1969-1970. He's on the 50th and 75th anniversary teams. His number 19 is retired by the Seattle Supersonics. In 1975, after his retirement, he became the full-time head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. After that season, he became the full-time head coach of the Seattle Supersonics, a team that he had played for some years earlier. And in his first season as the coach of the Seattle Supersonics, he coached them all the way to the NBA Finals, where they would lose to the Washington Bullets. I believe that series went 7 games, and they lost to the Bullets in 7. But the very next season, 1978-79, they would win it all, beating the Bullets in a rematch. I can't remember the spread, but I want to say it may have been 4-1. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, in the 1979 NBA Finals. But that was the only championship of Lenny Wilkens' career. And he would go on to coach the Seattle Supersonics all the way until 1985. And just looking at some stuff. He would go on to coach the Cleveland Cavaliers from 1986 to 1993. Atlanta Hawks from 1993 to 2000, to the Toronto Raptors for 3 seasons, 2000 to 2003. And the New York Knicks for 1 season, 2004, 2005. And he resigned as head coach of the Knicks on January 22nd, 2005. And as far as his head coaching career is concerned, he was coach a year in 1993-94 with the Atlanta Hawks. 4 times he was the NBA All-Star Game head coach, 1979, 80, 89, and 94. He was voted back in 1998 one of the top 10 head coaches in NBA history. And recently in the top 75 listing, he was one of the top 15 coaches in NBA history. He's on the Cleveland Cavaliers Wall of Honor. As far as his head coaching career is concerned, he has 1,332 victories versus 1,155 career losses for a 53.6% career winning percentage. Now, unfortunately, because of how long he coached, he does have the most losses in NBA coaching history. But he also has 2 Olympic gold medals. He was an assistant coach in 1992 with Barcelona, the original Dream Team, which earned him an Olympic gold medal. And in 1996, those of you who are old enough to remember, I watched those games vividly in Atlanta, held here in Atlanta. Damn, how did I sound like George H.W. Bush a little bit right there? Held here in Atlanta. I watched them here. Me and Jeb and George Jr., we watched them. I had Barb give me some low-cal beer. Enjoyed it intensely. Now, but anyway, he won Olympic gold as the head coach of the Barcelona. Excuse me, what the fuck I'm talking about? He won the Olympic gold again as the head coach of the men's basketball team in Atlanta in 1996. And he was inducted in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. I want to mention that in 2006. So, very highly decorated. In the Hall of Fame as a basketball player. In the Hall of Fame as a college basketball player. In the Hall of Fame as member of the greatest team ever, many will say, and the Dream Team in 1992. A guy who I think is the 9th greatest head coach in the history of the NBA, or professional basketball for that matter. Lenny Wilkens.